To the Batmobile. Let's go.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to move out.
Hello, Carnies, and welcome to the first episode of Sideshow. Carnivore Personnel's kind of mini episodes that we're going to do now and then for special occasions.
Yeah, we saw the opportunity to do one, the grimmest opportunity we could grab.
Well, Joe and I, as always, when we start off Carnivore Personnel, go out of our way to say, hey, don't be offended. We're just trying to be funny. We think we're comedians, so yuck up at our wannabe jokes. And so today is kind of, we're starting Sideshows with, I don't want to say somber because it's not going to be somber. It's kind of a celebration, if you would, of one of my favorite and one of Joe's favorite characters, personalities,
icons.
Yeah, I mean, in that work, it's thrown around a lot, but Adam West passed away yesterday at age of 88 after a brief stint of leukemia.
Well, it wasn't yesterday. It was he passed away Saturday.
He passed away Saturday, right. We're recording this Sunday, the day after he passed away.
Let's pull back the entire curtain. Burn that curtain.
That fourth wall has just come crashing. You know, when Adam West and Burt Ward were climbing up the side of a building, Joe?
Yes.
That they weren't. They just turned the camera to the side.
Wow.
Yeah. So
it's actually at a 45-degree angle.
Don't see.
Oh man, I just bat-splained you.
You did. Seriously, it makes me want to bash your high school girlfriend in the face.
Oh wait.
But Adam West, and again, because as everybody who's ever met me or heard anybody who met me or accidentally listened to the podcast know, it's all about me.
Yes.
So
this is actually called Jacques and His Boring Friend.
So yesterday, I did. I'm like, oh, F it. In all seriousness, I picked Don Rickles as a role model growing up. When I was a young kid, I got into really bad comedy, listened to my dad's comedy albums ad nauseum. Don Rickles always stood out to me. Don Rickles and Burt Ward and Adam West and Mark Hamill are my childhood. And I'm so worried that somebody hasn't already thrown Mark Hamill in bubble wrap and is under a protective watch because I've lost Don. Hear that?
Yep.
Not his family, not his friends.
Nope.
I lost Don Rickles this year, and yesterday a big part of my childhood, has gone to the great bat cave in the sky.
Yeah.
Adam West.
So if you would, please, for the listeners tuning into the first Sideshow, give us your thoughts on the great Adam West, his legend, his legacy, his oeuvre, if you will. And yes, he did have an oeuvre.
I will.
Okay.
That's how he got around when there was no taxis. So Joe and I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about some of the things we loved about him. Of course, most of it we'll be talking about Batman and the resurgence of Batman with the new cartoons that he's done and his appearances in the Batman Lego video games. But also wanted to talk about some of his other accomplishments, his lowlights, which he embraced dearly. He's done a lot of awful movies and stuff like that. But literally, it's like his career was pretty astounding. I mean, he was a long working actor before Batman, doing things, like Perry Mason and like famous, one-off actors. He was what you would call a working actor.
He was in a lot of procedurals.
And he actually was offered, before Sean Connery, the role of James Bond, but was under contract at the time and couldn't get out of the contract to have done James. This is pre-Batman.
Of course.
Couldn't get out of the contract to do the first Batman movie. I'm sorry, the first
James Bond
movie, which we know was Dr. No, I want to say in 1964, by Sean Connery. So that predates the filming of the Batman movie, which was filmed before the TV series.
Wrong.
And the movie was from before the TV series.
Wrong.
Really?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead and bat-splain me again.
I have to bat-splain you. Yeah. So what I did was, when I learned of the passing of the late, great Adam West, I dusted off the old Holy Special Edition DVD of Batman the movie, which was actually released a year after the series had started in 1966. And I know that the filming occurred after the beginning of the filming, because during the DVD commentary with Adam West and Burt Ward, Adam West explained that they filmed that during hiatus between seasons 1 and 2. Season 1, according to Burt Ward and Adam West, was a drudge. It was like, not a drudge, but it was just a lot of hard work. They would work on 3 separate scripts a day. And he had a system that worked down with like Burt Ward where they would run lines in between scenes for another episode. So if they were working on episode 1 and he had 3 scripts in front of him, he would snap his fingers 3 times to Burt Ward, and that means he wants to work on the 3rd episode, and so on and so forth. So they were working on multiple episodes, and I think they had like 30-something episodes, or maybe it was in the 20s, but they had a lot of episodes to film in a short amount of time for the TV series. And then they filmed this during the hiatus, which was the summertime. So basically, as Adam West put it, this was like a vacation to him. So the Batman movie was more of a vacation to him than the actual series.
And when you think of that movie in particular, and you think of the rogues gallery of Catwoman, the Joker, the Riddler, and Penguin, and and again, like with Carnivore Personnel, we do very little show prep. But when you think of those people, can you think of 4, like what that budget would be today? Because you have the prime characters of Adam West and Burt Ward, Batman and Robin. But then you have Cesar Romero.
Yep. Latin lover, Cesar Romero.
We've
heard stories of Cesar Romero on other podcasts.
But then you have, you just go down the list. Frank Gershom.
Or Frank Gershwin.
Gershwin, I'm sorry, names.
Or Frank Gorshin, because that's his that's his name.
But you think about it. Think about those 4 people, true A-listers at the time. I mean, that's 5 if you count Burt Ward. But you're talking with Adam West, 5 household names. And the other 4, were bigger movie people or big movie people. Adam West wasn't a huge movie person. But it's like, what would the budget of that be today? I mean, that literally, you're getting Tom Hanks to play.
It's funny you mentioned budget, because in the DVD commentary, I learned a lot of the series, and the set alone for like the Wayne Manor set and the Batcave and all that, $800,000 adjusted for inflation. I checked it out. In today's money, that's $6.3 million for a television show. Granted, there were only 3 networks at the time, and then I looked at the viewership for season 1. They had 2 episodes. They had like a Tuesday episode and a Wednesday episode. And I believe they were like in the 14 million households. 14 million households, which means average out like 3 people per household.
Right.
Think of the eyeballs that are watching Batman.
And if you remember nobody here remembers. Nobody who was born.
I don't remember.
In times. Like, you would have to have been born in like the late 50s to remember when it aired. But when it aired, it made a big deal to say in color.
Yeah.
ABC, where you'll see the most talked about man in television, Batman. See him in color every Wednesday and Thursday nights.
And TV shows back then just didn't have the budget. I mean, color film had been around since, The Wizard of Oz, like some 30 years earlier. But it was so cost prohibitive, and that was the big thing about like the Batman show, is they had it. One of my having heard so many interviews with Adam West over the years, is one of the reasons he really thought long and hard about doing Batman is he was a working actor. He could get character roles in plays in New York and London, in between doing TV appearances. Lots of TV stuff was shot in New York at the time. He didn't want to get typecast.
Yeah.
And he knew, like, gosh, Superman. It could never, the original
George
TV
Reeves.
Superman, George Reeves, could never work again. No matter, how, what he had done before and how good he was and his name and all that stuff.
He was opening supermarkets and stuff.
That's why he ended up blowing his brains out. Or allegedly, some people say he was killed.
He was trying to stop that bullet.
Maybe I am Superman. But that was a big consideration. Because Batman was such an iconic figure. He had been around for 40, some 30 years. By that time period, and he was afraid if this show is a hit, great, I get a steady paycheck for the next umpteen years while the show goes. I might never work again. And he did it for years. I mean, after that, it was hard to get serious roles after that, for both of them.
Yeah, I mean, and thanks to the magic of the internet, we have IMDb, and we're able to look up some of the projects that Adam West worked on after Batman, and they were varied, to say the least. I mean, he did the procedural work before Batman, and then he got then the big hit of Batman, which only lasted 3 seasons. Kind of like Star Trek, like that late 60s era. Like, they churned out a lot of episodes because they had more episodes per season. And the episodes themselves were longer. The episodes themselves were, I think, maybe 27 minutes versus the 19 minutes that they are today.
Well, like you said, it aired twice a week.
Right.
But then he did the normal stuff, for 10 years later plus things, or even 15 years later, he's doing things like The Love Boat.
Yes.
He's doing Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah, I think Jesus did The Love Boat at one point.
He did. Well, I don't know. Did you do The Love Boat and then do Fantasy Island, or would you do Fantasy Island and then do The Love Boat?
Yeah, I guess that was up to Aaron Spelling. That was his call.
But then Heart to Heart, every one of those things.
She's gorgeous.
Murder, She Wrote.
It's Moira.
Mad About You.
I'm mad about her.
The original TV series, The Flash.
The Flash. I'm just going to talk like Max from Heart to Heart.
See, Heart to Heart was, and then it's great. Then he always did different roles on the different Batman TV series, whether it was the animated series, whether it was the Batman. He always did different voice characters.
Well,
and
then
stuff like that.
you're moving into his iconic voice and his voice work, and I was kind of explaining this to my older son, who's 17, about the culture of the 90s and how it differed from the 70s and 80s. Like, back in the 70s and 80s, there was reverence, but there was irreverence. There wasn't this sort of ironic, pull back the curtain kind of attitude towards television writing as there was in the late 90s and going forward. But back in the 80s, if you were typecast as if you played Batman, or if you were on those awful shows from the 60s and 70s, not that Batman was an awful show, but if you were on a cheesy, maybe quote unquote kids show from those days, you would be typecast, and you wouldn't be able to. It was a little too close to home. You wouldn't be able to embrace how beloved those shows are, and maybe right after those shows wrapped up, those shows weren't as beloved because there wasn't this brand new audience that could appreciate it for its kitsch value. But as the 90s rolled around, I think that allowed Adam West, and enough time had passed, Adam West finally came around and sort of embraced that absurd character that he created and the way that he played it off. And he knew that there was an audience that really got it. The jokes are corny. Yeah, they were meant to be corny.
Right, he embraced the campiness.
Yeah. And then, so when he was cast in voice work in his later years, especially when we roll around to Family Guy as Mayor Adam West, that's when he really embraced himself, I think, as an iconic character.
Singing is contagious. I'll sing too.
Adam West, Adam West. A little bit softer now. Adam West, Adam West. Adam West, Adam West.
Right, and it's funny. It's you hear the stories, the commentary on the box sets of Family Guy and stuff like that. And when they were like, "Oh my God, working with him," they would be like, I wonder if he'll read this. And basically, they were stunned that he
would read anything you put in front of him.
Right, and it's funny because we've heard interviews, and there's nothing Joe and I love more on our podcast than plug other ones. But he did a great interview. I implore anybody accidentally listening to us to go and listen to Gilbert Gottfried's podcast.
Amazing, colossal podcast.
Where he talks with one episode he does with Burt Ward, which 2/3 of the Burt Ward podcast are talking about Adam West.
Yeah.
And Adam West, who every time Gilbert would bring up just some awful low budget, back then they didn't have right to DVD movies, but that never saw the light of day, that were horrible, that you can now find, that completely panned. Can you get less than a 0 on Rotten Tomatoes?
Can you owe them tomatoes?
It's so what interests you about taking this role? And he was like, well, I got the script and I wasn't a big fan of it, but then I remembered I had 4 kids going to college, and he would always go back to, if there was a paycheck,
Right.
And there was, and we've seen so many documentaries where there was years where, and this is before the San Diego Comic-Con came about, and when the first dozen plus years of San Diego Comic-Con, it was a regular run-of-the-mill Comic-Con. Now it's a week-long, shuts down the city, truly, endeavor. He would go to the third-string city, tiny, out-of-the-way places for a few $100. As Adam West, he couldn't show up in the Batman uniform for so many years. And
That's
stuff
another whole other podcast about the tying up the rights of the Batman TV show.
And it's why everybody's loved that TV show for decades and decades, literally 5 decades, but it didn't come out on DVD to just a few years ago.
It missed the DVD generation.
Right.
It came out on Blu-ray.
That's how long it took to get through the legal, minutia for it to do. But if you do, he was very, very self-aware of like, my career the last 30 years was a complete parody of himself, where he would do things like Robot Chicken. He would do, and again, we've already said, he'd do all the Lego Batman games. He would do...
For those of you who aren't familiar, so Lego Batman is a series of video games. This is before the Lego Batman movie came out, where you would go and play as Batman and Robin and all the DC characters. And Lego Batman 3 in particular, Adam West did a cameo where, as part of like, sort of a side quest to the game, in each level you can rescue an Adam West in peril. And he would say things like, "Help, good citizen! I'm TV's Adam West."
TV's Adam West. Every time he mentioned his name, he was TV's. Help, TV's Adam West.
Right? Yeah. And
you've saved TV's Adam West.
Right. Well done, citizen. But so one thing I do want to mention about Adam West's career that I think all you Adam West nerds out there would know about, but astonishingly, before I turned on the microphones here, I learned that Jacques did not know about this project of Adam West's. Look Well. Look Well was a TV pilot conceived and written and produced by Robert Smigel and Conan O'Brien in the late 90s.
Hacks.
Yeah, right. Where are they now? That's what I ask. So the basis of Look Well, and this was written specifically for Adam West in mind, because Conan O'Brien growing up was a huge Batman fan. He tells a great story, sidetrack, tells a great story about how at Harvard as a student, he got Burt Ward to come to visit with the Robin suit, and they plot a scheme to steal the Robin suit and taking it back to their dorm, and then basically holding it for ransom over the phone with Burt Ward, going, "Please give me that back," because it was worth like $10,000 or something like that.
And it was his livelihood.
Yeah, so that's a whole other topic. But anyways, so Look Well was a sitcom pilot that was written and unfortunately was never picked up. But it was like one of those like alternate universe, like you could imagine it running for 20 seasons. The basis of Look Well was that he was a TV detective who was like an instructor. Like he taught at like a learning annex, but he was an ex-TV detective who decided to revamp his career by going out and solving actual crimes, but just showing up at crime scenes in his detective scene. Yeah, and just totally playing it like his character would. But so he would interject himself in a crime scene investigation and be like,
What seems to be the problem, officers?
We're handling it, sir. Could you please step back?
I don't think you understand. I used to play a detective.
Oh, yeah. He was Bennigan.
No, that was George Kennedy. I was Bannigan.
Could we get back to this, please? We'll do what we can, sir, but this is the 5th lot to have a classic car stolen this week.
Sounds to me like a string of classic car thefts. You boys better check it out. As Shakespeare reminds us, how oft the sight of means to do ill deeds makes ill deeds done.
Would you get lost?
Which USA then took and turned into Psych.
"Oh, okay."
I'm just making that up.
Right,
If you ever saw Psych,
I know. Obviously, I didn't.
It was a fake detective who was really a smart guy. He literally just injected himself.
Oh,
in it.
right.
But very funny show. Nothing to do with Adam West.
Right. So, but Look Well.
Go on.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it, I implore you. You can see it. It's probably been viewed millions of times on YouTube. The entire pilot for Look Well is available for free on YouTube, and it's just you look at it, and it was ahead of its time. It's a little, dry in spots, kind of like Naked Gun in that respect, but it's just like the concept just sort of blew your mind. It's a comedy nerds and Adam West nerds fantasy come true for at least the one episode.
So it's funny when you think about alternative universes. Was it Tom Selleck who was first offered Han Solo? Because I don't think I think it was Han. I think if I got that right, I think Han Solo was first offered, but for some reason he had some TV pilot that wouldn't let him out of it to do it. Or no, Indiana Jones, was it I think it was Tom Selleck might have been offered Indiana Jones. I cannot remember. But to think about that, to think Adam West was offered James Bond.
Yeah.
How different would the universe be in entertainment if Batman didn't happen?
Right, because James Bond now is linked with England as like an English icon. Anybody who's played James Bond is basically knighted.
Right. And so, I mean...
Sir Adam West.
And it does not matter. I mean, there's been, Roger Moore, who just passed away, stuff like that. Pierce Brosnan, you go down the list. I mean, they've always had, pretty great actors doing James Bond, but Sean Connery's James Bond.
Yeah.
End of the day. So what happens? Like, does Sean Connery become a stage actor in Scotland that never sees the light of day? Does Batman never happen? I mean, it's one of those... Wow.
Do we never learn that Sean Connery believes that sometimes a woman needs to get slapped?
Hey, in the words of the great Robin Williams, are we really going to talk about dead people? In the words of the great Roger Williams, Robin Williams, I hate you. I do not condone hitting women, but I know what turns Mr. Hand into Mr. Fist. Comedy coming at you, duck.
Yeah.
But honestly, when you go down his career and you see, like, I want to say it was like, Death Race 2000, this really great, awful 70s movie where the whole premise was run over people from it was dystopian future.
Now called the American Healthcare Act.
Oh, see, that's why you do a podcast with somebody smarter than you.
That's called smart content. I'm bringing the Stewart.
I'm bringing the little.
No, John Stewart.
Yeah, I know, but
Rich Little.
But he did so many campy roles. But let's just focus on the Batman TV show and the movies while we wrap this up. That 1966. It's now 41 years later. They just brought back, or they just recreated a new series based on it, an animated series that is doing incredibly well. I think they finished a third season.
Was it a series?
Oh, yeah.
A series of the original Batman series?
No, the cartoon. They've done a whole.
I thought it was just a TV. I thought it was just like a one-off movie.
No. They've done some. They brought back a comic book based on Batman 66. Yeah. The DVDs, everything.
If you look on my shelf over there, there's a little next to the DeLoreans. There's a little.
Wait. DeLoreans.
Multiple.
I see 3 DeLoreans on that.
Well, you're not looking hard enough. There are 4. So.
I see the tiny one.
No, there's one tall and the Lego one.
Anyway, ladies, he's taken.
Right. That'll be the next sideshow. My obtuse Back to the Future obsession. But there's a little tiny Batmobile. I'll grab it.
Oh no, I got it. I would have to somebody please tweet at Carnival Personnel Facebook page. I believe off the top of my head the original Batmobile was a 1957 Lincoln.
You got me. Was it George Harris? Or George Barris? What the hell is the? Oh God, I'm such a dope.
But I think it was a 57
Who was the
Lincoln.
guy that designed that and the Munsters? His name was like George Barris or something like that. George Harris, I forget.
And he still has a shop in LA where you can see all these cars just parked out there.
Wow. Jay Leno hasn't bought it yet. But yeah. This is, I'm holding in my hand like a little die-cast model of the original 66 Batmobile, and it's glorious. And it's made in China.
China? Huge. That place is huge. China.
Yeah, I didn't know Adam West. Many of us did not know Adam West, but we felt we knew Adam West, and for that, we will miss Adam West. And
the great thing, with that show that I want to touch on, you see the people who were on that show, and we've already talked about like the Cesar Romero and the Merriweather, and why am I blanking on a Penguin's name? Help me.
Burgess Meredith.
Rocky's trainer.
She's gorgeous.
But he was in so many classic. These guys were huge. The TV show had just huge people. I mean, the TV show had so many people calling. They tried to get Frank Sinatra.
Right. I was going to say Frank Sinatra was supposed to be like the Joker.
And they couldn't make his schedule work. And it was one of those things where you hear all these stories. Their kids or grandkids of these A-list actors were saying, be on the show. Why aren't you on the show? And the studio executives weren't making calls to these A-listers. They were taking calls of these people like Frank Sinatra saying, I want in. How do I get in?
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Well, it's funny because he wanted to be the Joker, and they're like, we already have an actor playing the Joker.
And so, and I referenced it at the beginning, the iconic thing, they were always climbing up the walls with their bat ropes, and somebody would poke their head out the window, and it would always be somebody like
Ethel Merman or Dick Clark or
huge A-listers. And we're like, well, how can we got an A-list household icon name calling our shitty little show, saying, how can I be part of it? And there's no way you turn down any of these people. So that's one of the reasons they came up with that gag of always climbing up the wall, because it would give...
Yeah, it'd be a way for them to shoehorn in a cameo appearance.
And if you ever Googled like the list of people who made appearances on the show or in the movie, it was just phenomenal. So he's done, no matter what William Shatner does, he will always be James T. Kirk. The T stands for Tiberius, for those of us following along at home. But Batman will always be Adam West. Adam West will always be our Batman. I can't say enough. If you get a chance to listen, to him either on the commentary of the Holy Special Edition of the Batman movie, or listen to Gilbert Gottfried's Colossal Obsession. But if you listen to the Adam West one, you gotta also listen to the Burt Ward one.
Yeah, and the Adam West one was earlier on, and the Burt Ward one was like 3 years later. Like, it was more recent. But yes, rest in peace, Adam West. Jacques, to the Batmobile.
To the Batmobile.
Oh, and one more thing I just want to mention one more thing, and I didn't notice this until Adam West pointed it out on the commentary of the Holy Special Edition Batman DVD. As they're sliding down the pole, you hear Adam West go,
I have a bigger pole.
and it was a thicker pole. Adam West had a bigger pole.
One more incredibly important fact I almost forgot to mention. Please remember,
some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.